Manufacturing has been the backbone of America since the late 1700s. Factories started emerging in small towns and big cities across the country. One city that was no exception to this was Muncie, Indiana. The gas boom in 1886 took Indiana by storm, turning the agricultural economy into a manufacturing region producing paper, rubber, and glass products. The gas belt from Kokomo to Anderson and Marion turned small towns into bustling cities with businesses and expanding neighborhoods. Muncie, Indiana was the home the Ball brothers chose for their new glass factory. Using natural gas to run their factory, the Ball brothers decided to stay in Muncie once the natural gas sources had been used up by 1890. In the early 1900s, many manufacturing companies and factories moved to Muncie for the cheap labor the gas boom had brought decades prior. Many car manufacturing plants found their way to Muncie throughout the next 60 years, including General Motors and Delco Remy. In 1962, the Ball brothers closed their doors in Muncie, which caused the start of the deindustrialization within the city. Driving around Muncie today, one can see large buildings with broken windows and graffiti, as well as large patches of concrete that are unused, overgrown, and forgotten. Many companies followed the Ball brothers in the following years, leaving Muncie and factories and land behind. All that remains of the past companies are large areas of land and memories of people who worked in those factories.
Just take it easy. Hold on to this feeling. Oh, our friends are leaving, and we ain't got nowhere to go. Caught up in the afterglow.
The Ball brothers opened their factory doors in 1887 after their factory in New York burned down. They looked for a site closer to natural gas and found themselves drawn to Muncie, Indiana. A letter received by George Ball in 1887 noted the city had given the company 3 acres of land, a sum of cash, access to railroad facilities, and free natural gas for 5 years. And on March 1st, 1888, glass production began inside the factory. The factory employed a large number of workers, and the factory stayed around for about 70 years. By World War II, the Ball brothers had many other factories across the country, as they were the biggest glass manufacturing company in the United States. During the war, some of the Ball brothers' factories were transformed into military factories for the war effort. In the early 1960s, America was moving away from canned and jarred goods, and the factory here in Muncie closed in 1962. Once a leading employer in Muncie, the factory lays dormant. The Ball brothers did leave a legacy behind with their philanthropy, as well as their generous donations to the Muncie community through the Ball Brothers Foundation. The old factory is located off Macedonia Avenue here in Muncie. The entire complex was once part of the factory, and the tall white building behind me stands as a reminder to the city of the men who made glass jars. Ball Corporation Park also sits on the land that used to belong to the old factory. It's got a few amenities. Chevrolet has been a big car manufacturing company for well over 100 years. In 1920, Chevy built a factory in Muncie, and with it, thousands of jobs producing cars and car parts. In the 1940s, unions were formed for better wages and benefits in the factory. During the 1950s, General Motors expanded its production, and in turn expanded its factory and land use. From 1961 to 1966, GM constructed new facilities to meet the growing demands of transmissions, and with new jobs came more people to fill those jobs. Employing nearly 3,000 people, General Motors could no longer keep up with the demands of the union as well as foreign competition. Economic recession in the 1980s and the unions demanding more money, better benefits, and better working conditions, Chevrolet found the Muncie facilities to no longer be beneficial, as ownership changed multiple times from 1984 to 1990, and closed the doors to the Chevrolet factory in 2006. Just about all of the land here on the factory can be reused, but according to Bob Hare, cleanup manager for all of the Racer Insights, quote, most of the anchorage there could have been used for about anything other than for residential use. Currently, there seems to be something going on at the old factory. You can drive in, and there's some equipment sitting down the road, although I am not entirely sure who owns the property and what they're doing. As I'm here recording, there have been dump trucks going in and out of this facility, and they've been putting dirt over there in the back, and I have no idea what's going on. So They could be up to something, but I've yet to find out what. All right, so I just asked this friendly driver who just came in, and he has no idea what they're doing. He just said that they're bringing in dirt. So I guess only time will tell what they're doing here. In 1902, Tom and Hugh Warner founded Warner Gear in Muncie, Indiana, and opened its doors with 8 employees. In 1920, the company reached 1,000 employees, building manual transmissions. After a few negotiations and deals with Warner Gear, Borg and Beck, Marvel Scheibler, and Mechanics Universal, a joint merger amongst all 4 companies took place in 1928, allowing for expansion and production. Plant 3 is then constructed along Kilgore Avenue, providing job opportunities. At the end of World War II, Plant 3 begins expansion and hiring more people. They reach their peak employment of 6,100 people. In 1970, both stacks were demolished as BorgWarner switched from coal to steam. In 1977, plants 1 and 2 on Hackley and Seymour were sold to the city of Muncie. In 1996, the company sold a manual transition line to Tremec. In turn, 800 local jobs were lost. In 2007, the company announced the plant will be shut down with a workforce of 780 people. On April 23rd and 24th, the plant is closed down by 70 people. All machinery from the factory is auctioned off in June of that year. The plant was purchased by William Mart after the last employees were laid off in July 2009. Remains succumbed to graffiti and vandalism in the following years, and very little remains of BorgWarner's Plant 3. The land is up for sale, obviously zoned for industry. Looking back on the desolate remains of these facilities, one can only imagine what it used to be like, seeing these massive buildings turning out product after product every day. At the turn of the century, Muncie moved towards local businesses. The mood shifted from a manufacturing city to a new economic structure that focused on a diversified local economy in the direction of the service sector as opposed to the manufacturing sector. In turn, businesses such as Ball Memorial Hospital and Ball State University and retail shops such as Walmart and Meijer got more attention and benefits from the city. One company has moved to Muncie since the turn of the century, Progress Rail. They opened their doors in 2010, taking over the old Westinghouse factory. Progress Rail is a subsidiary of Caterpillar, and the division focuses on electromotive power, or trains. They produce locomotive engines for all Class 1 railroads in North America, as well as foreign export locomotives. For some of you railroad guys, this is where some of the Norfolk Southern Heritage units were made in 2012. Today, the buildings that once provided jobs to thousands of people lay dormant. While some places have plans to revitalize the land, most of the plots of land remain unused and abandoned, a scar to Muncie's former glory of a manufacturing powerhouse.
Somebody somewhere finds the warmth of summer in the songs you write. Maybe it's a gift that I couldn't recognize. Trying to feel alive.
Saved my laptop's life right there.